In this video, we're going to build the ultimate DualShock 4 controller, taking a gamepad from this to this. We're installing the KontrolFreeks Inferno Kit, as well as the licensed rear button attachment from Sony, which is still a good rear paddle solution to this day. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to overclock this controller. We're going to tighten up the dead zones of our thumbsticks and also give them better accuracy in the circularity test. What the fuck does any of that mean? Well, my regulars could explain it in the comment section, or I could just be a good YouTuber and show you in the video, which I'm gonna do. And we're also gonna customize that LED light strip on the top and even set up some hotkeys in OBS in case you're streaming with one of these controllers. Yeah, that's right, Windows control with the touchpad. Craziness. Let's get it.
This is your controller captain. We've reached 6,900 feet. Go ahead and start flicking the sticks and mollywopping the back paddles.
You don't like back paddles? How about those rear buttons? We've tested almost 100 custom and premium controllers, and we're only at the beginning. You need a thumbstick guide or tutorial on how to overclock your controller? Check out the controller playlist. Bing bong.
Controller captain out.
So we are starting with a stock candidate controller. This is a licensed DualShock 4 controller, or DS4 controller as the kids like to call it. Now, to alleviate any confusion you might have, or to cause a bunch of confusion in case you didn't know there's different versions of the DualShock 4 controller, just to simplify or break out what otherwise is a very confusing table or chart, there's two substantially different versions, kind of a midlife refresh of the DualShock 4, but within those there's 5 separate generations which will have these serial numbers concurrent to this table or chart. But guess what? Unless you're installing a rear button or paddle kit that actually requires soldering on the board, or you're installing parts that compatibility or a specific model number actually matters, then you need to dick around with this chart. Luckily, since all the modifications we're doing are simple bolt-ons that stick on the outside of the controller, we're not even going to be disassembling or tearing down this controller at all. So easy day for us. But you now know that that resource does exist to you on the internet, and there are 2 versions, 5 generations of DualShock 4 controllers. So if you're customizing one, be cognizant of the parts you're installing. Are they compatible with that version? They probably are. The original version, which is this serial number, comes only in these license authorized colors from Sony, so if you see any other ones, it's going to be a third-party janky knockoff vendor on Amazon. So what are we installing on this poor innocent unsuspecting stock DualSense over shoulder? Well, first of all, the Inferno Kit. Apparently 2 items or pieces or more is a bundle, package, or kit. You would think it'd be like several pieces, but I'm not going to argue semantics here. This is a kit, and it does provide a pretty good value as you're getting rubberized grips and thumbstick caps for $25. Now, if you have a current console, a PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, or an Xbox Series controller, don't really have a name, Old Faithful, we call her, ye Old Faithful. They do have kits for those controllers, and they're $25 as well, come in different colors, and if you are going to purchase anything from KontrolFreeks, whether it's their thumbstick caps or stick-on grips, these precision rings, which we're going to be using today, I do have an exclusive creator code, GamerHeaven. You punch that code in, you'll knock 12% off your purchase price. So that's pretty sick because some of KontrolFreeks products are pretty pricey. For example, their thumbstick caps, the most expensive on the market, but then concurrently also the best. So it makes sense. You get what you pay for. And just so nobody's calling me a sellout or anything, I've been calling KontrolFreek caps the best for like 3 years, and I just got accepted to the creator program like a week ago. So you chill with that. But the stock stippling or texture on the back of the DualSense controller is trash, for lack of a better word. It is slick as snot. It's not as grippy as the DualSense controller, which has little PlayStation icons or symbols on the back. And the series controllers also have a nice bit of stippling or texture on the back. Quite slick back here, so I have always recommended putting on some rubberized grips. As for thumbstick cap extensions or caps, we know what that's going to do. It's going to give us a more grippy surface that makes contact with our thumb. It's also going to increase the height, which is going to give you, indeed, more precision. They say things like increases your KD ratio 33% and all kinds of off-the-wall claims like that. I'm going to skip over all the marketing bullshit and just tell you what these do. Get your toilet paper. What these do, because you're going to be wiping the competition. They do increase the height, which lets you bump up the in-game sensitivity. Just a couple clicks. Don't go crazy. That's actually worse. But maybe like a 7.7 on COD. It's perfect. And that way, since you have more height, you do have more leverage, more control, where you can do those precise finite movements when you're sniping. But lo and behold, you hear an enemy over your shoulder because you're using your audio cues. You can snap aim, get on target,
send them back home to the lobby.
These do work. It's science. And then as for these precision rings, these are literally just a piece of dyed foam that goes around the outside of the thumbstick cap, and that's going to increase the resistance that you need to use to move your thumbsticks, which is going to make you more accurate. Now, companies like Battle Beaver and Evil offer increased thumbstick tension. It's a relatively expensive option, and there is no turning it off. Once it's on, it's actually installed on the module. The Elite Series 2, I like how they approach it. You remove the caps, and then you use the included tool to tighten or loosen from 3 resistance or strength levels. I, of course, have the left stick on its loosest setting and the right stick on its highest resistance. But for a standard controller that doesn't have that option built in, these are the next best thing, and they do exactly what they set out to do. I will say they are slightly overpriced for what they are. I said that during my initial review, and I'll reiterate that again here, but I will say with my 12% off, it does kind of balance it out. What I would say is a reasonable price, but hopefully they reduce the price. And the different colors do correlate to a different amount of resistance, so stronger foam. And you can also stack these as well. So if you have a higher stick, you can stack 2 or 3 of these dishes on top of each other, which you actually need to do for that thumbstick to even make contact with the front faceplate. And as for the licensed Sony attachment, I have reviewed a couple of third-party generic knockoffs. They were pretty garbage for lack of a better word, but the licensed first-party Sony variant, which launched unfortunately near the end of the life cycle of the PS4. This is a flashback post from the official PlayStation blog, December 17th of 2019, and they're announcing the back paddle attachment, which ended up dropping February 14th, 2020. So not a lot of intimate time with what is a pretty good back button attachment that should have launched with the PS4 console. They would have sold so many more units. Because in essence, you take a controller that you already have, they know you got one, it came with the console, and just snap on this wireless block, which actually works quite nicely, and you have 2 rear button inputs, paddles in this case. Actually, they're kind of like paddly buttons. They're hybrids. I still see why people like the DualShock. It is just a comfortable ass controller. Still a bit small for my liking. I think the DualSense is more comfortable, but damn, it is actually very comfortable though. I see why people like it. Now, as we're about to be sticking something on this controller, we want to make sure that the surface area is clean. You can of course use isopropyl alcohol, but that will actually eat away at some of the plastics, some of the dyes on the plastics more specifically. Now, I've been using a bleach and ammonia-free glass cleaner for quite some time, and it hasn't damaged any of my controllers, so that's pretty sick. The old trickaroo, how do you do, is you don't spray it directly on the controller. Spray it on a microfiber first. Now, this controller is already pretty clean considering it's brand new. I think I've only played with it once, and it did just come out of a box. Now, the next thing after you've cleaned the surface area, make sure you properly dry it as well, because if there's any moisture trapped between the adhesive layer and then the actual plastic, you're gonna have a problem. It's gonna be peeling off in a couple of weeks, a couple of months. It's gonna happen eventually. Now, the next step is to identify left and right. The right side is going to have the KontrolFreeks logo stamped or emblazoned. You're going to line them up like this, and they simply wrap around the palm grips. Now, I do recommend that you really do try and do your best on the first attempt, because if you try and remove it, the adhesive is going to lose a lot of its strength on the second, fourth, 100th attempt if you're clumsy with it. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best here. I just took my medication, so I'm a little bit relaxed, but I should still be crisp and precise for this task at hand. That adhesive is freakishly strong. The stuff that Miles Morales has in the palms of his suits, clasp onto the walls, or Peter Parker, pick your Spider-Man. This is the moneymaker right here. This isn't going anywhere. Now, I recommend using your palm to just slowly wrap around and work out any air bubbles. You don't need to use a squeegee or anything crazy like that. And if you're having any major issues, you can take a heat gun, or if you don't have one of those, go steal your sister's hairdryer, put it on its highest setting, and since this is rubber and adhesive, just go back and forth, work out any air bubbles. But I had no issue just popping this on the first time. I don't like that. Or that. Oh, geez. Oh, golly. Oh, boy. Oh, geez. It's gonna take some getting used to, that placement. Now, in hindsight, for my grip, personally, I wish I would have gone down here to where it wraps around the bottom, because pretty much my entire pinky is in an uncovered area. And I don't like the way that this little crease feels, where you have this uncovered plastic area, because you definitely feel that, and it just... I might need to reposition this. There we go, it wasn't too bad. Let's move her down substantially, which I know it's not designed to be down there, but sure it wasn't also designed to be uncomfortable either. 10-4 affirmative. Also quite whack. Okay, pull it taut. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, much better. Okay, yeah, that is way better. So actually placing it about a 1/4 inch lower is better if you have medium to larger hands, because where you're actually going to be gripping the controller, which is right about here, is covered with the rubberized grips. And then as for the thumbstick caps, these literally couldn't be any easier as long as you got the right platform, considering there are different ones for Xbox One and Series, PlayStation 4 and 5, and then the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, not to mention a bunch of other third-party support as well. There is a page called KontrolFreeks/compatibility. It's going to be linked in the description below. Now, I'm actually only going to install a cap on the right, and I'm going to have the stock height on the left. I just thought of something. I really hope there's clearance with these paddles and this stick-on grips. Important, read first. Well, I don't know how to, so I'm going to skip on it. Packaging is incredibly basic on this product. Instruction manual, pamphlet, or brochure, but really installation is as simple as snapping it on. And then your accessory port and your 3.5mm headphone jack are going to line up with the ports on the bottom of the controller. Oh no, my worst fears have been recognized. Oh yeah, we're running right into those rubber grips. Let's install install the paddles first. That's the most important thing here. We're gonna have to cut into them a lot, looks like. Removed about that much. How the hell did that even happen? Okay, not the most even thing in the world, you know, cosmetically not gorgeous, but feels good and will perform good as well. Should have waited to install the caps, done the precision rings first, but making a bunch of silly rookie mistakes here today. The different strength levels of these rings is going to be popping up on screen here. I am going to be installing one of the black ones here just from the cosmetic factor that purple or lime green would look a little bit silly with this black and red build here. Oh boy, that's an insane amount of resistance required. I got to use a lot of finger strength. I don't even know if I'm making it to full lock on the outside of the thumbstick gate, but we're going to leave it on there. That is even more resistance than my Battle Beaver, which is their highest level, which is like 270 grams, I believe, of resistance. My golly. Now, I like how this rear paddle system works, how you rebind the rear buttons. I just don't like this little glossy screen as it collects fingerprints and micro scratches, smears, oil, all kinds of other crap and gunk that you don't want on there. Each time you turn on the controller, you are going to have this little wake up screen with the face buttons or symbols. It'll show you what profile you're in and what the default bindings are, and then it will immediately shut off with the controller if you're not paired up to a console, which this currently isn't. But when you are connected to a console, press the screen to wake it up, even though the paddles have been usable even with the screen off. For example, right now it's controlling my PS5. But tapping the screen will wake it up. Double tapping it will swap between the 3 onboard profiles, and you can customize any of these. So I'm going to select profile 1, which is going to be my primary. You gotta be quick about it or else it goes away, as you see. I'm going to select P1, hold it down for a couple seconds, and now it flashes and shows you which profile is in remappable mode, currently P1. Now you're going to be able to squeeze each one of these paddles individually, pick out exactly which one you want. So on the right side, I want cross, and the left side, I want circle. Now this might look like a circle to you, but this is actually NA or null and void if you want to disable a button completely. There's your circle right there. Hold down the button again. Now we've exited remapping mode, back in an actual usable playable mode. So this isn't quite as fast and simple as other premium and pro controllers where you hold down a rear button or paddle in conjunction with the face button that you want to link it up with. It happens lickety split. You can fire them off real quickly. This takes a little bit more time, but since this is a separate piece, a different module or block that snaps into a stock controller, and it's not actually soldered on the board, this is their best means of communication here with this little LCD screen. It works okay. Plugged up to the PC via the micro USB cable that the DualShock 4 controller is still using. This was before the jump to USB-C. Gross. And as we see, pretty good resting values here on the vertical and horizontal axes of both the sticks, resting at 0.00392. Let's do the circularity test to get our thumbstick accuracy. Holy shit, what the fuck is going on? Run that again, please. Awesome. So some of the worst results we've seen in a circularity test, all that red is horrendous. Now that is bright red. That is crimson red. That is catch you on a Wednesday for friggin' fun red. Red is the worst color that you can see in a circularity test because these are areas where your thumbsticks are simply not registering your movement. And you can actually see that here. It's not fully extending out. Also, for the average, lower number better. So the closest to 0 you can get is the best. You want to see a lot of baby blue in there, maybe a little bit of purple, maybe some pink. That's pushing it. Red, you're dead. In game, you're getting slapped around. To remedy this, we're going to launch a fantastic program called DS4 Windows, which is specifically for the DS4, the DualShock 4, and also the DualSense controller. Ooh, we're only on 9% battery life with this controller, but we are plugged in and charging. Now what we're going to do is come over here to the axis configurator, and for LS, which is left stick, as well as RS, the right stick, we're going to change this value anti-dead zone from its default value, which is 0.2 or 0.8. I'm drawing a blank right now. Anywho, it's definitely not 0.0, which is the value you're going to type in. Do this for the left and right analog sticks and then hit apply up here. Two other things we're going to do while we're here is go over to the other tab and make sure this is emulated for an Xbox 360 controller, kind of spoofing your PC into thinking it's a different gamepad that has more compatibility for other launchers. And down here for Bluetooth polling rate, this will be at a default value. Go ahead and bump that up to 1000 hertz. That is basically overclocking the Bluetooth chip on board, which will get you measurably faster wireless speeds. But as with all these changes we're making, that is PC based. If you go back over to your PlayStation 4 or 5 console, it's still going to be communicating using the Bluetooth protocols of that console. And these overclocks and spoofs and all this other fun stuff, dead zone tightening, is all being done by programs in the background on your controller. So PC specific shit. Now we're going to leave DS4 running in the background because if you close it, it will stop doing all these goodies for us. But now you see a much tighter resting value that these sticks will always snap back to when you take your fingers off them. Also, just barely feathering over the thumbsticks will start registering my inputs. I like to see that. Let's do the circularity test. It's probably not going to be great, but it might be a little bit better. I hope to God it is. Nope. still shitty, making me look like an idiot. One thing I will say, the shittiness is very evenly distributed to where these thumbsticks might actually perform a-okay just because it's blown out over here, it's janky over here, it's wonky over here, it's disgusting down here, which means that each one of these 4 diagonal inputs are disappointing you evenly. It might actually feel like normal thumbsticks. I'm trying to make the best out of a bad situation. That's terrible results for a thumbstick accuracy test. Over here in a program called X Input Test, and we're going to get our stock input lag or delay by measuring the polling rate / refresh rate. Those 2 words are used interchangeably for gaming peripherals such as mice and controllers. I'm going to be here a while rotating this left analog stick because, as you're seeing, we're getting an average of 16 milliseconds of input lag or delay, which is very, very slow for a wired connection. There we go. Why is it telling us 18, Kevin, when you just said 16? That's because we have 15 outliers, which are these wonky numbers. They're usually going to be near the top. There's 2 of them right there. They don't really correlate with the rest of the numbers. If we just scroll through manual, you can see clear as day, 15.9, 16 flat. Let's overclock. I believe we found her an estimated 20 milliseconds of input lag or delay, and we were close to it. We were getting about 16 to 18. Just to make sure this is the right controller, I'm going to highlight this, unplug the controller. Does disappear on me. Replug it via that micro USB cable. Gross. She pops back up on me. Let's get to overclocking and get dirt nasty quick with it. I do know there is an updated version of this Lord of Mice overclocking software. I will get around to it eventually, but trust me, the OG legacy software is tried and true and does the same stuff. We are overclocked. Unplug the controller. Replug it. Now we are overclocked at 1000 hertz for an estimated 1 millisecond of input lag or delay. Let's test that. Whoa! Wow, weird. So some pretty wild, sporadic, not consistent results here. As you see, it sputters back and forth like a V-twin on a Harley, back and forth between these 9s and these higher numbers, these 19s here. Weird, but not that weird because I have seen this with DualShock controllers in the past. Let's reduce the overclock to about 500 hertz, please. Yep. 500. She's back. She didn't have enough the first time. Not as buttery smooth as a DualSense for sure, but our minimum and maximum are closer together, giving us a more consistent connection. God knows how from these results. And the average is indeed lower. Hell yes. Now, I've heard an old wives' tale that going Bluetooth on the DS4 is actually a faster means of connectivity to the PC than a micro USB cable. That's simply incorrect. Multiple back-to-back pulls off camera, and this is the best results here. 36 milliseconds, and as you can see, very sporadic, very inconsistent with the minimum at a very acceptable fast 1.0 and a maximum of 5600. Also, jitter astronomically high, and that was clear during the test. It was very sporadic, stuttering and sputtering as I was moving that left analog stick. Half the time it wasn't even registering my inputs, and it took about 3 minutes to complete this 1000 sample test, which is long. Now, I have watched some older overclocking tutorials and guides and also read some forums, and a lot of those are claiming that they're getting the DS4, the old DualShock 4 over here, the DualShock Quattro, to some astronomically low response times. However, none of them are actually testing the polling rate or refresh rate. No proof that any of these overclocking techniques even work, as where my overclocking guide, which is linked in the description below, I walk through several platforms, the DualShock, the DualSense, Xbox One and Series controllers, Nintendo Switch Pro controllers. They're going to get their own separate video because compatibility with ReWAS than other programs is pretty janky. But don't overclock just to say that you're overclocked if you have no means of actually measuring the performance, because it is simply pointless and can actually introduce issues to your controller, inconsistent inputs, overclocking with no measurable proof of what you're doing. Another fun thing you can do with the light bar on the DualShock, as well as the light around the touchpad on a DualSense controller, is fully customize the color with the sliders in this light bar section. It does reflect in real time, which is pretty darn sweet. You can also have it change color at different battery levels, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, you can dim it and completely turn it off here. And if you want to set up some PC specific controls, so perhaps you want to control your OBS, control your live stream, maybe switch between scenes, overlays, stuff like that, you can actually do that from your controller, swiping up, down, pushing down on the touchpad, and you set those motions up here. For example, click on one and I want it to be page up, which I'm going to have hotkeyed to a function in Open Broadcaster software or whatever the hell your broadcasting software is. Is this the ultimate DualShock controller? Well, of course, you can get much more expensive options if you want to get a full custom premium or pro controller, but if you already have a stock DualShock controller laying around with some simple stick-on modifications, yeah, you can have a real humdinger. Now, I will say, in my opinion, the DualSense is a much better controller, not only ergonomically, but also you've seen the thumbstick results in Gamepad Tester, and then you've seen the stock and overclocked input delay results, very sporadic in comparison to the board, the PCB on the DualSense controller, and I have tampered with several different versions of the DualShock controller, different variants, and it does fluctuate, but not by that much. The results you saw here today are pretty indicative when I'm running a DualShock controller. As we're a DualSense, you've seen me time and time again get well under 1 millisecond of input lag or delay, delay, specifically around 0.92, 0.93 milliseconds, and via Bluetooth around 2 milliseconds of input lag or delay wirelessly to the PC, which is pretty sick. That is if your PC's motherboard has the latest and greatest Bluetooth technology and you're using a DualSense, not something like the DualShock, which is using a lot of lesser components. There was about 7 years of gap there between those two consoles. So obviously the Bluetooth chipset, the thumbstick modules, granted they're still potentiometer based, are much more accurate as we saw. But shoot, if you're playing some PS4 games, the DualShock is no slouch of a controller. I mean, it served me and many other gamers well for 7-year life cycle of the PS4 and then on some. There's still faithful users of the PS4 to this day. All the products that we use in today's project or build is linked in the description below. They're down there. And I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach in a system as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at GamerHeaven. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of GamerHeaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number, and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding, starting June I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting GamerHeaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily, all the time, 60% of the time, sometimes, most of the time. Peace.